the line, sweet Jesus. One toke over the line, sitting in the radio station. No, we're not. We are NH Unscripted. I am your one toke over the line loving radio host, Ray Dudley. Happy to be here. Happy to be here. We are coming to you from the Hindenburg-like digs of the WKXL studios in 1450 AM, 103.9 FM. Those are Concord-based. 101.9 FM for all you beautiful folks in Manchester. And for all the kids who can only go by URLs, you can find us at www.nhtalkradio.com. NH Unscripted can be heard every Wednesday and Friday mornings at 9 a.m. Yeah, that's early, but hey, what time did they give out the Jell-O at the home? I'm up for that. In studio with me today, before I get to my sponsor, is Glenn Provost, correct?
Provo, but yes.
Oh, thank you. Good to have you. Glenn, hang on. I have to thank my sponsor. That is Lakes Region Fence in Guilford. They have a website called lrfence.com where you can go out. Now, listen to me. You can go out there. There's a little button if you are thinking about getting a fence. You can get a free estimate. You know what's better than me getting my senior discount at Dunkin's? Is anything free. I'll take anything free. And if you're thinking of getting a fence, head on out, lrfence.com. Press the little button. Sign up for your free estimate. I was with Matt the other day, and I'm going to be honest with you, those are busy folks. Busy. Last time I talked to them, I think they were booking 6 to 8 weeks out. Now's November, so I'm guessing they're probably booking for springtime. Yeah. Do it. You need a pool fence? Come on. You need a horse corral? You need commercial line property? What do you need? Do it. Give them a call. What are you waiting for? Lakes Region Fencing, Guilford, lrfence.com. lrfence.com. Glenn.
Yes,
welcome.
Indeed.
Welcome aboard.
Glad to be here.
Glenn, tell me something.
Sure thing.
Why the hell are you even here today?
Well, I'm here to promote my show opening at the Hatbox Theater. It'll be running November 10th through the 19th. Fridays and Saturdays, 7:30 p.m. Sundays at 2. And, it's at the old Steeplegate Mall, 270 Loudon Road. Come check us out.
Favorite there. The name of the show is?
The name of the show is Lungs.
Yep, one word. One word, folks. You got it. We're going to peel all that back in a minute. But, Glenn, if you were going on a 3-hour trip, would you be listening to audiobook or podcast or music?
Probably a mix of music and podcast.
No, that's too diplomatic.
Okay. For 3 hours, probably podcast. I get sick of music after about an hour.
Are you like a detective kind of, or sports, or what are you into podcasts?
I listen to some politics, but I also listen to This American Life, Radio Lab. This one called How Did This Get Made? I listen to a wide variety.
Like that.
Yeah.
Is it really everything it sounds like it is?
It's they watch basically just terrible movies, whether they're B movies or just failures.
Like Sci-Fi Theater 3000 or whatever that is?
Very similar, yes, but in podcast form. And they kind of, rip on it, but also they congratulate actors who, are putting their best into what is an otherwise doomed project, and they just have fun with it. Yeah, because they're actors themselves, so they have a respect for it.
I have no respect. We are on the lower rung here. Tell me something. Now, you and I have never met, so I'm really interested in learning about how you even got interested in acting, and then I have some questions about your style. So,
sure.
Where did you get the hook from?
Yeah, outside of a brief gig in second grade as Johnny Appleseed, I didn't really act until high school. And I got talked into an audition by a friend of mine for the musical Camelot. And I had never intended to audition because I don't sing. I still don't. I do karaoke these days. I've found a new love for singing later in life.
I don't know where to go with that one.
Not too many musicals. Yeah, I know. But after that, I played King Pellinor in that show, which is like one of the only non-singing parts. So that was my in. And then the following fall, I did my second show. I auditioned for Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller. And I actually wrote in my audition sheet I would like to not have a large role because I wanted to focus on schoolwork and it was such a drain. And then the director calls me up and is like, "How would you like to play Willy Loman?"
What?
And I just I fell in love with the language, though. During the audition, I was reading the speech about something about a diamond. I can't remember the exact words now, but it's Arthur Miller. The prose is just impeccable, and so I fell in love, and I've just been doing it since. Went to college for it and everything.
So you would obviously then you've strayed away from musicals as much as possible.
Yeah, I've done a handful, maybe 3 or 4, and I would be more open to it these days. Like I said, I found a love for singing later in life after college, but at the time,
Sounds more like shower singing, though. You said karaoke. I'm thinking
I get really good
behind
applause.
closed doors kind of thing.
No,
a lot of drinks, dark bar.
No, I get good compliments, but I'm not going to be opening on Broadway anytime soon. I'm well aware of my limits. I think I would be a very solid supporting character.
Where are you based out of?
These days, Manchester. I've done quite a lot in Portsmouth as well. Yes.
So, are you live south of here, or are you traveled over to there to perform?
No, I live down in Manchester. Yes.
You do. So, tell me something about this company called Bolt Cutter.
Yes.
It's a very intriguing name.
Yes.
Bolt Cutter Productions is the company responsible for producing Lungs at the Hatbox opening this weekend.
Yes.
Are you a part of Bolt Cutter?
I am the founder of
You
Bolt
are?
Cutter Productions,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
So I am also I also wear a producer hat for this show, which is a challenge, but I did not take on the directing role as well. That is being taken on by the very capable Catherine Stewart, who is an absolutely wonderful director and playwright, and she also works in documentary as well, films. So yes, Bolt Cutter. It's a brand new production company. This is our first production. I've had a hand in numerous other production companies in the past, including one called Strangers at Home Productions. We did a production called Seascape with Sharks and Dancer by the playwright Ben Nigro. We performed it in Portsmouth, and then we were both moving to New York at the time, and so we remounted it actually in Manhattan.
You did?
We did.
Congratulations!
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, and that was a heck of a. It's a similar process to the one we did here for Lungs, in that the two of us, me and this wonderful actress by the name of Tana Sorois, we co-acted in it and also co-directed, co-produced, co-designed it as well. This one. We'll get into the tech aspects or lack thereof with Lungs, but it's basically just the three of us. It's me, Catherine Stewart, our director, who I've previously mentioned, and then the actress Ashley Ristine, who is playing opposite me.
Are you aware that there's almost no information about you out on the interwebs?
I am aware, yes.
You are, huh?
Yeah, I was off social media actually entirely for about 5 years.
It shows.
Oh, no.
I went to look up about you, and I'm like, what? This guy's a ghost. What's going on here?
You can find some old articles from 20-aughts.
How would you describe your acting, your persona? Do you prefer drama? Are you somebody who loves comedy? Are you somebody who has to get the script like 3 months in advance, and you're just going to pour over it and do research for days?
I think I'm a jack of all trades when it really comes down to it. When it comes to producing or directing, I definitely veer towards drama. But I've done a wide variety of comedy. I've actually worked with Dorks and Dungeons, the improv comedy troupe.
You did?
Yep. I was one of the core members for the first 3 or so years. When they were still at the Players Ring and the Seacoast Repertory Theater. They just closed out at the 3S Art Space the other day, actually, is my understanding.
Dang.
They're moving to a new space. But I also I've done a handful of comedies. Actually, quite a few. I've done a lot of Shakespeare. I run the gamut.
If you just started Bolt Cutters, who have you been performing with besides Dorks and Dungeons?
Sure. So I performed quite a bit over at the Players Ring, and then I was down in New York from 2013 to 2016, I believe. And then I actually took quite a long hiatus. Just trying to, recharge my juices. New York can be very brutal, and I kind of became disillusioned with the art form for a little while. And I needed to take some time off to breathe and to re-find why I was doing it.
I can't imagine even how you would begin auditioning in someplace like New York. Because, if you're not, Equity or whatever, How are you? Where are you finding all your? You hear the music?
I do.
Yeah. Hang on.
We'll come back.
We're going to hand out the dance shoes. We're going to dance ourselves away into a break, and we are one toke over the line, sweet Jesus. Yes. I am Ray Dudley, your host of NH Unscripted. We are coming to you from the studios of WKXL 1450 AM. Oh, my God, I'm tongue-tied. 103.9 FM in Concord, 101.9 FM in Manchester. NHTalkRadio.com is the URL. Glenn Provost. Provo.
I mispronounced it for 20 years. That's
and it's his name. We're coming back. Here come the judge. That's from Rowan and Martin's Laughing. For those of you who aren't old enough, you are listening to NH Unscripted. I am your host, Ray Dudley. Oh, I'm so happy to be here. We are coming to you deep from within the bunkers of the WKXL studios, 1450 AM, 103.9 FM in Concord, and 101.9 FM for the happy souls ren out there in Manchester. And if you want to find the archives of this show and all of the other great programming here, head on over later, www.nhtalkradio.com. Glenn Provost is in the studio with me. We are about to engage in a conversation about a production he's in at the Hatbox Studio at the Steeplegate Mall. What was the Steeplegate Mall? God only knows what it's going to be shortly, but called Lungs. But before we get into that, Glenn, do you prefer the Players Ring as opposed to, like, say, because the Players? I'm asking me.
As opposed to a proscenium?
Yes, thank you.
Yes. My preference is definitely for those more intimate spaces. Yeah. I just love the immediacy of it, and you can get away with so many more subtle facial expressions and quieter moments in those spaces that, don't require you to project nearly as much for, the back audience.
At all.
No.
Never mind as much. Oh, my God. I mean, you could almost... If you had a long enough stick, you could touch someone in the back row.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love the Players Ring, and I do like the Hatbox as well, for those same reasons, man. I'll take it all day long.
Yeah, very similar spaces.
Yeah, you can catch every teardrop. You can see every bead of sweat. My gosh, man, I just love it. How did you guys come up with Lungs?
Oh, the show was actually written by a UK playwright by the name of Duncan Macmillan. I believe 2011. Yeah, but I actually read this show over a decade ago, and I was just blown away by the prose, the writing. It's just electric, and it's so deeply realistic. Ashley and I we commiserated the other day about how difficult it is to memorize this script. We've had shows with more lines in them, certainly. But the way that it's written is so kinetic. There are times where we'll cut off each other's sentences. Very often we'll have sentence fragments. It's almost in Mamet-like, David Mamet-like, in the way that, the dialogue is just hyper-realistic, and it has those little eccentricities that you don't often find in either play or movie writing. And there are even longer segments where we'll be talking right over each other, like saying monologues at the exact same time, just, in one of those lovers' quarrels that just explodes every once in a while.
So how did you come about it? Have you seen it before?
No, I have never actually seen it. I was given it to a friend, and I came up in college with a love of Samuel Beckett and other minimalists, and one of the hooks of this play that we haven't got quite into yet is the fact that it's two actors on a bare stage. There are no props, no set, there's no lighting changes, and no costume changes. It's about 90 to 100 minutes, and it's just two actors, and it goes straight through, no breaks.
Wow.
No intermission. So it's a daunting challenge, but it's also it's exciting because it forces you not to hide behind any tricks or any devices. It's just you gotta be very honest and connected to your acting partner. It's just raw and pure and exactly what I love.
So how long did it take you to adapt to that? Because Yeah, that's a little bit of heavy lifting there, just two people on stage for 90 minutes.
For sure. Yeah, and there's not even any, miming. It very specifically says that in the show notes at the top.
It does?
So, yep. So, there are times when we'll be, quote-unquote, eating food, and it's like we're not lifting an imaginary fork to our mouths. It's just understood that it's happening somewhere in the background, but we're focused more on the conversation that we're having, and that's the real focus, both of the writing and our production. As to how to adjust to it, it was certainly a challenge, but I feel just absolutely blessed by the team that I ended up with. I actually had never spoken to Ashley previous to June of this year. I reached out to her on the recommendation of a friend. I went to see her in another production at the Players Ring, The Stands by Jack Neary. And we connected. We did a callback. We actually grabbed some tacos together just to get to know each other. And the vibes right from the start were immaculate. She is just a lovely performer and human being. I cannot say enough nice things about her. Just absolutely fearless in her commitment to this project.
Ooh, fearless. There's an interesting choice of words. Why did you use that one? What can you, without giving too much away, I don't know if you can or not, but you specifically chose fearless. Is there something happening here that...
Yeah, I think it has to do with the emotional brutality of the show. It definitely goes to some very real places towards the end. But also there is, this is the story of a couple and their life together. And it basically tracks their decision whether or not to have a child in the age of climate collapse. And so it's a very heavy subject matter. But obviously in portraying a couple, there are intimate scenes. And with somebody you've never met before, that can be a touchy subject. But she has been absolutely gracious and generous. And I think we formed a real connection, and both as friends and as performers. And
what do you think was the most difficult thing you had to overcome to get the play up on its feet?
Right. I think...
it was just smooth sailing? Or,
honestly, it has been surprisingly.
Really?
Yeah. And again, I credit that a lot to both Ashley and to Catherine. And, to myself as well, but I don't want to pat myself on the back too much.
Go ahead. It's just you and me. Go ahead.
No, but I've certainly performed in enough capacities to have a comfort level with everything in the show, whether it's comedic, dramatic. But yeah, I'd say, gosh, what are one of the most difficult things? I think one of the most difficult things was just how to vary the action and the blocking without becoming contrived. There are times where we take it abstract, and there are times where we've tried to do that, and we're like, this isn't working. We're distracting away from the story right now.
You mean overperforming? How would you describe what you're talking about?
Sure. For instance, there's one part where we're going back and forth, and time is passing very quickly. Just as an example, there's a line very early on in the play where she feels overwhelmed, and she says, I need a minute to think. I'm going to take a walk. And I say, okay. And then the very next line is, what's wrong? And I said, you said 10 minutes. She says, I needed to think. It's pitch dark. You stink of cigarettes. So in that moment, hours have passed.
Dang.
And so throughout the play, that happens where it snaps right through.
Will the audience pick that up? Or
yes.
Yeah.
There's more than enough context clues, and we've inserted, physical bits to indicate those shifts. I think it's quite clear.
Yeah.
And there's, just as an example, there's one part where, that's happening rather quickly, and we're basically just walking in circles around the space to show kind of the distance and the estrangement between us. Mm-hmm. Whereas for a lot of the play, we're just, right in it together. And even when we're disagreeing, we're doing so, with love and with empathy. But, there are very select moments where we're doing that.
Yeah.
And then other moments where we're very quite literal. And it's just, if we're sitting down right on the stage.
Yeah.
So it was tricky finding the mix of that made sense to best tell the story.
How do you think, I know you can't really speak for Catherine, but what do you think as a director was her most difficult thing to get across to you guys? Because you can't really see each other. We know as actors, we like to think that we're doing it perfect, but we do need some outside influence to go, hold on, no, wait, this isn't translating very well to the audience. Do you think she found moments like that where it actually changed the way the dynamics between the two of you?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah?
Yeah, but she is a wonder and a marvel. Really.
She looks, in all the pictures I see, she looks like she's having a ball directing.
Oh, yes. No, she's just lovely. And I would say that she has a very opposite directing style from myself, if I might volunteer that. I tend to be fairly prescriptive. I have, a very set idea of like, this needs to happen and this needs to happen. Nope, we need to sharpen that up. Let's do it again. Like, this needs to come in before that bit. She's much more soft-spoken and distanced and intuitive and just emotionally intelligent. And she lets us... She suggests at times, and then other times when she does have something that she definitely wants, it's like, hey, maybe this won't work, but let's try it. Tell me how you feel. She's just marvelous.
So much more collaborative?
Yeah, much more organic, much more collaborative than myself. But yeah, she's... I'm really, like I said, blessed to have the two of them.
Glenn, do you hear something?
I do. I think that's the music for the next break.
Here's your jazz gloves. Put them on. We're going to keep them nice and clean. Glenn and I are going to go make our manwich sandwiches. Yeah, we got a couple more blocks coming back, but we're hungry. We're going to wave our little jazz hands out into the next break because we need to pay some bills. This is NH Unscripted. I am your happy to be out of bed host, Ray Dudley, coming to you from the glacial studios of WKXL in Concord, 1450 AM, 103.9 FM. And 101.9 FM in Manchester, and our archives at nhtalkradio.com. Glenn and I are coming back. I know we make you want to shout, throw your heels back and shout, throw your head back and shout, because that's who we are. Yes, the whole neighborhood wants to be out there shouting, kicking up their heels. Everybody loves NH Unscripted, of course, and they love me, your host, Ray Dudley. What can I say? It's a natural thing. We are coming to you from the studios of WKXL in Concord. For those of you who like radios, 1450 on the AM band, 103.9 on the FM band, and in Manchester, 101.9. For those of you who have no idea what a radio is, you can find us at www.nhtalkradio.com. Yeah, we're into the 20s. Hey, we're eating cow tails and manwich sandwiches because those are the kind of folks we are. Glenn Provost is in the studio with me. We are dissecting the upcoming production of Lungs, taking place at the Hatbox Theater, opening Friday?
Friday. Yep, November 10th.
And going on?
Until the 19th. So
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
Friday, Saturday at 7:30, Sunday at 2.
Excellent. I hate matinees. I think I've said that once or twice on this station. But, well, I'll do anything, I guess, if I have to act. So, why... Did you choose to play?
I did.
You did. What about it said to you, we have to do this? Of all the plays out there, you're like, oh, of course. Why wouldn't we do this one?
Yeah. Well, I think I listened to a separate podcast about this play, and one of the things they mentioned is that in 2011, this couple, they're so focused on the environment and climate change, they seemed a little bit alarmist when this play first came out. But now in 2023, I think everybody's starting to notice, like, little things or little news stories that are popping up more and more. And so I think it's just a subject matter that a lot of people feel anxiety about. And so I think it's an important topic that's worth exploring. And also, as I mentioned before, I just think the writing is absolutely dynamite.
So is it like really two people having a conversation? You mentioned at one point that a lot of times you're overlapping each other like real people do. Mm-hmm. And some playwrights cannot get that through their head. And so they have to have a full sentence with a period and then the next person can stop. But there is, in real life, overlapping conversations.
Yeah.
And so are you finding, will the audience find it to be just like that? I mean, not...
Yeah, no, I think it's it's got a trueness to life that's not found in, there are very few times where we'll have this super eloquent, well thought out. I mean, not to say that the characters aren't articulate, they're very educated. But, there's times, not to bash on him too much, but Aaron Sorkin in particular is known for these big monologues that save the day. And there's nothing like that in this. It's much more realistic in that sense.
What's the time frame? Is it a night? Is it a weekend? What for this couple? Okay, all right.
Yeah, no spoiler alerts. It's as I mentioned. Sometimes it's a matter of hours in between those shifts. Sometimes it's a matter of days or weeks. And then as the play progresses, up until the last few pages, I'd say there's at least a few years of difference, and then it goes through decades.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Really, really.
So in the space of 90 minutes or 100 minutes, we travel...
Yeah, it's almost an entire lifetime. I mean, we pick up with them already established as a couple, indeterminate age, but I would say maybe late 20s, early 30s. But and then it progresses until, their seniorhood. Towards the very end of the play. Not to spoil too much.
Okay, so, all right, we have to stop there. We're going to put a tack in that for a second. So... You said there's no scene change, there's no props, there's no even costume changes. Are there costume changes?
No.
And you're going to go from, let's say, 30s years old age-wise to elderly?
Yeah, I mean, it's at least decades, for sure.
And we're going to believe it. You're going to pull that off.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. That's a true actor.
That's part of the magic. No, that's why I love theater like this. We're not, theater can't ever compete with film in terms of, photorealism or production values. I think what it really comes down to is the emotional honesty. And I think it's a much more verbal or textual art form, whereas film is much more visual. And so you really got to just lean into that and bring your truth to it.
So how, as an actor, are you finding these moments where, okay, now I'm like, I don't know, 10 years older, 15 years old, 20 years older, and you obviously you have to adapt. Something has to change either verbally or physically in you to portray that. You can't just say, oh, now I'm 80 and, you're going to have to believe me.
To a certain extent, we do rely on the suspension of disbelief. But at the end of the day, it's still the same person.
Glenn, come on, you're supposed to say, no, Ray, yeah, I get out a walker. And I'm like,
I know, but
spray painting my hair. Why?
No, this isn't the 39 steps where you're, bringing in these, wild caricatures and broad physicalizations. Ultimately, that's not what the play is about. It is about the connection, the relationship, the emotional truth, and... just the ideas that are within it. So
is the audience going to come away at the end is there some finality or is it kind of still open-ended? The whole, whatever they start off discussing, like I'm guessing based on what I've read, it's about having a child. And okay, if it takes these years, does the audience come away with some conclusion that they resolved their issues? 10 years later, you either had a baby or you didn't.
Yes. No, there is a very definite conclusion.
I'm thinking, right? If I got biology right.
Gosh, I don't want to spoil the ending, though. Gosh, it's so good.
Okay, I got him.
But no, it's...
He's hooked.
No, I think the audience is going to come away, if we've done our job, absolutely gobsmacked. I think we've got something real on our hands here. It's something really special we've created.
Did you not use the term extreme brutality? No, you said emotional
brutality.
Yes. See, you thought I wasn't going to pick that up. You thought, this guy, he hasn't had his maple yet. I'm going to slide that one right by him. Emotional brutality.
Yeah.
That evokes some interesting thoughts.
Sure.
Why don't you open that up for us a little bit? What do you mean by that? What will the audience experience based on this emotional brutality that takes place?
Sure.
Did you see Virginia Woolf up there?
I did.
Okay, that's emotional brutality.
For sure.
For sure. Is it similar to that?
In some ways, yes. In some ways, very different.
You got to help me out here, Glenn.
No, I'm going to get there.
All right.
That's my introduction. I'm not gonna leave you on the line.
I'm waiting patiently.
No, I'm going to feed you like a baby bird. Don't worry. So, yeah, I think I would say the difference is that we see this play begins very much in the middle of their relationship, whereas that one ends almost past the end of it. I mean, it's curdled, it's withered, it's desiccated, it's dead. It should have ended.
He knows all the adjectives. You read your thesaurus today, didn't you?
I consider myself a man of words. But no, this play, I was actually shocked in the early stages of the rehearsal process at how much fun we were having, because I know where it ends up in certain aspects, and it gets very real. But at the beginning, you really do get a large space of time to get to know these people and see why they are together and why they love each other and how they love each other. And it was so much fun to explore that and really, explore the humor and the charm of these people too. And I think in Virginia Woolf, you don't get as much of that, where you don't understand why these people are together. Towards the end, Martha has some wonderful monologues where she describes, her and George's courtship. I'm very familiar with that play. It's wonderful. It's a masterpiece. I think it won the, not the Nobel, what is it? The Pulitzer. But, unless I'm mistaken, then I could be. But
I'll just nod.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
We'll go with it.
Whatever you say, Glenn.
It won an award.
Sure,
it's pretty well known.
At least something. It won something.
I think there's a Wikipedia article about it you can read up. No, but I think this play, I think for the fact that it does establish that, and you get to feel the love between these two characters, I think when things get difficult, it resonates that much more, because you want it to work out, and when it starts to fracture, you feel that pain with them. Whereas in Virginia Woolf, for all its merits, I feel like because it starts so far into it, it has less connective weight. Though I think it has a perfect effectiveness at what it's doing in that very different play.
Yeah. Tell me about, there are photos out there of the two of you,
yes.
You and Ashley, correct?
Ashley Rustine.
It seems as though there are times when the play would get very intimate. Mm-hmm. Was there any difficulty in for either of you in taking on intimacy? Because some actors just don't have it.
Right.
They're very cold.
Yeah.
Was there anything going on there? Was it an easy sell?
No. Well, it seems like we'll have to wait for that after the break.
He caught the music!
Yeah, I sure did. I'm learning.
You know what that means, folks? Time to make the fried bologna sandwiches. Yes. Glenn and I are here. We got our tap dance shoes on. We got our white jazz gloved hands going. We are heading over to the fryer later, baby, to cook up some fried bologna. I like mine with the chips smashed in the little Anyway, you are listening to NH Unscripted. I am your happy to be out of bed host, Ray Dudley, coming to you from the Taj Mahal-like digs of WKXL 1450 AM 103.9 FM in Concord. Oh, you great souls in Manchester are finding us on 101.9, and we are also out on the interwebs at nhtalkradio.com. Glenn and I are coming back. Block D coming up. There's a whole lot of thinning going on around here, Baba Louie. Glenn and I are doing all the thinning ourselves. You are listening to NH Unscripted. I am your host, Ray Dudley. Getting, I think, handsomer by the second, but Glenn won't tell me. You are listening to us, coming to you from the, I'm going to call it the YMCA-like digs today. Smells like chlorine, like someone's been bleaching the place. WKXL Studios in Concord, 1450 AM, 103.9 FM, 101.9 FM in Manchester. And all of this show's archives, plus the other great programming here at WKXL, can be found at nhtalkradio.com. You can go out there in a few minutes. Hang on. Glenn's about to tell me something important. We're talking about intimacy in theater, especially in Glenn's show coming up, Lungs. Take me on that trip, Glenn.
Sure. I think first, to kind of segue into it, I'll backtrack to that hiatus I mentioned. So, Yeah, I stepped away from theater a bit back in 2016, but I've done a few shows since then. Arcadia at the Hatbox back in 2017, I believe. I did Shipwrecked with Theater Kapow. I've worked with them quite a bit. That was in 2019. And I've also done numerous readings with Seven Stages Shakespeare Company over in Portsmouth. A lot of their Shakespearean play readings, which are just a blast. But that's all to say that, I was dipping my toe back in and out, but I missed this kind of revolution in intimacy direction that has hit the theater since, the Me Too movement hit. And so I found myself a little flat-footed at the beginning of this process. And we set up an intimacy director to come in on this production. Unfortunately, she had to back out before we started due to schedule conflicts and location conflicts, yada, yada, yada. Thankfully and luckily, Catherine Stewart has some experience with that field, and Ashley Ristine has also worked with intimacy directors in the past. So I deferred to them a lot, and they walked us through the exercises in terms of creating very clear boundaries, no-go zones on each other's bodies, and just being very forthright about it, what we're comfortable with, and constantly checking in throughout the process, whether that's at the beginning, middle, or end of rehearsal. And they really walked me through the steps, and I was very conscious of that. And allowed them to take the lead. I actually insisted that they do so, both as, I kept bringing it up, the only straight white male in the production, and also as the producer. There's, not so much of a power imbalance at this stage of community theater, but it still exists, and I was very conscious of that, and I very much did not want to pressure anybody into something that they weren't comfortable with. And so it really comes down to communication and trust. And again, Ashley, gave that to me very, very obligingly. She's just, like I said, fearless, and I thank her for it. And we've just been professionals about it and very, very open and communicative about where we want to go and what we're willing to do.
When you saw her on stage, what was it about her performance that particularly grabbed you and said, oh, okay, this is the person who I think can make this happen?
So when I saw her on stage, she was it was actually after I saw her on stage that I started to put it together, because she was playing a very different character. It was she was kind of a very waspy psychologist who was very dressed up and very direct and elevated. And so it wasn't a perfect fit for this role, but I was like, okay, she's performing this character well. And then I saw her after the production, and this was my first introduction to her, and she was a completely different person, just an absolute metamorphosis. And she has an extremely kinetic energy, which I think lends itself to this role, because the roles are basically delineated as M and W for man and woman. They aren't given names within the show. But W is an extremely anxious person. She actually very early on in the show has this 3-page behemoth of a monologue that is just go, 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 sentence fragments, these ideas half form, and then she repeats herself. She corrects herself. It's all over the place. It's an absolutely tour de force. But yeah, she has that very natural energy, which I said, oh, this is the character. And that's proven to be the case throughout this process. She's absolutely incredible in this role.
Before we get too far and we miss the chance, why don't you give me the dates again, the times,
absolutely,
and the name of the show again?
Sure. The show is Lungs. It was written by Duncan McMillan. It will be performed at the Hatbox Theater at 270 Loudon Road, otherwise known as the Steeplegate Mall, right across the road from the 99 Bar and Grill. It is running from November 10th through the 19th, Fridays and Saturdays at 7:30 and Sundays at 2 p.m.
Were there any difficulties in putting it up over? Wait, first of all, where were you rehearsing? You had to find the place, didn't you? I mean,
yeah, no, that was a challenge.
Yeah.
Actually, we ended up rehearsing, of all places, way over in Newburyport, Mass, at this place called the Dance Place, which they have a relationship with a group called Theater in the Open, which mostly does Shakespeare and classics. I'm familiar with them very tangentially. I've worked with Teddy Speck, their artistic director, through Seven Stages. He is an absolute marvel as well. But Ashley also grew up knowing the founder of the dance place, Fontaine Dubus, I believe, D-U-B-U-S.
It's okay, I can't say your last name, so
I know,
that's fine.
but she'll have to forgive me. I'm so sorry, Fontaine. She's been lovely. But yeah, Catherine is actually based out of Portsmouth and Ashley out of Peabody, Mass. So we had to triangulate and find a place where we could all meet. And since they're coming up to Concord, that's like a longer commute, I was perfectly willing to go to Newburyport and to meet them in the middle. So that's where we ended up.
She's from Peabody?
Peabody, Mass. Yeah, but she does quite a bit in Portsmouth, and she's dabbled around Northern Mass and all over. She's very dedicated.
I'm thinking a half hour away from my house is a long time to go to audition or rehearse. She's coming up from Peabody?
Surprisingly, it's only about an hour. I don't know exactly which road, but it's not as bad as it sounds, but it's right.
It is.
It's
It's as bad as it sounds.
Hey, I went to Manchester to Portsmouth quite a bit back in the day, so I'm familiar with it. But
Good grief. So what do you think the audience... What are you hoping the audience will take away from this? And have you had any feedback from like anybody watching it who's obviously not in it, like Andrew or somebody, and getting some feedback on whether it's working?
We're actually having some people come to the tech rehearsal tonight, so we'll get a little bit of that. It's mostly the cast of The Flick over at NHCP in Portsmouth. Their run is concurrent with ours, so they would not be able to see it otherwise. So, we extended to them, hey, if you want to check it out, we'll open up our tech rehearsal to you, and that'll give us some early feedback. Other than that, the photographer who took the shots that you mentioned, Dan Derby, who's outrageously talented and gracious, he gave us a pat on the back. And also, one of the dance teachers at the dance place would sometimes come in to grab some props she teaches dance to, little ones, 4 to 6 years old. And so she comes into our space, and so she's caught little bits of dialogue, and she'll stop us with comments like, "Oh my God, as a mother, this part rings so true. Let me tell you."
Oh, that's what you want to hear.
Exactly. No, we and Catherine herself is, she's very sharp, and so she would tell us if we're not I mean, there are times where we had the electricity early on, and it was just easy, and then there are other times where she's like, "I'm not feeling this." And she'd be very direct about that. And, we're professionals. I can take that. And it's like, yeah, I kind of agree. I don't know what's missing. So let's work through it, And then you do, and you find it, and then, bam, it's magic.
Okay, that fascinates me.
Sure.
Because there are people, let's be honest, there are people who would, first of all, never know it's not working just because they don't. And there are those who can recognize it but not know how to get out of it or not, and it can be anything. I don't know if people really understand that just a change of venue, a change of pacing, a change of even just distance apart, anything like that can alter that dynamic. Whether you raise your voice or lower your voice, whether you just simply pause and don't say anything.
For sure. A
lot of those little tiny things can alter the way a conversation takes place. I mean, it's natural, but you don't think about it, So were you finding moments like that throughout the production? You mentioned that she said, like, this isn't working for me, but are there other places where you're like, oh, and it just literally changed the whole way you saw the scene?
100%. Yeah. I mean, even there were times where...
This show writes itself. Why am I here?
No, I think it just comes from... Very early on, both of us as performers were just dedicated to the honesty of the piece. It doesn't give you any place to hide, Like I said, there's no props. There's no, I'm going to go over here to the bar and fix a drink and do this and that. There's no business. And so you just have to be absolutely dialed in the whole time.
Man.
And so you get used to that. And there were times where Ashley would throw me a humongous curveball in terms of whether it's the blocking or the line delivery. And, you just have to be truthful and take it in stride and say, okay, what do I do with that now?
Oh my God, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Because every now and then you hear somebody who will say, if you're acting with that person, they're going to give you a lot to work with. Mm-hmm. And that to me is fascinating.
Yeah.
That means that person has this whole range, right, that they can draw from, and that they're willing to just not overshadow you, that they know that for the sake of that scene, that they have to either kind of fold away and let you come through a little bit more. That give and take is powerful.
Yeah. And like I said, I ended up with a dream team. I don't know how or why, but I'm infinitely grateful for
How did you find Catherine?
Catherine, I mentioned Arcadia back in 2017. I played a very small role in that. Somebody had dropped out. I ended up playing Captain Bryce. He's got like 12 lines. But yeah, I jumped into that, and I had worked with her, and I thought she was incredibly intelligent. And so when it came time to find somebody for this, I reached out to see if she was game, and I was lucky enough to have her. And it turned out better than I could have ever imagined, because that small experience with her did not prepare me for how incredible she is as a artistic force.
Glenn, thank you. You hear the music.
I do.
You know what that means?
It means we're
time
done.
for the fried bologna sandwiches. Glenn Provost from the upcoming show Lungs at the Steeplegate Mall, the Hatbox Theater. This weekend it opens, this weekend and next weekend. Oh, you are listening to the NH Unscripted. We are coming to you from atop the studios of WKXL in Concord. 1450 AM, 103.9 FM, and in Manchester, 101.9 FM as well. Hey, we're out on the interwebs. You can go there now, nhtalkradio.com. Glenn, thank you. Break a leg, buddy. Break a leg.
Thank you.
I hope
it's been a pleasure.
I'm going to be out there. I hope so.
We'll be back
next week.